Today's lesson is going to be on distance formula and midpoint formula. So first we need to write down what the distance formula is. Your distance formula should be memorized. Now this is only because it's not included on your formula sheet for your end of year test. So anything not on that sheet is what we tell you to memorize. Your distance formula, D for distance, is the square root. And there's a lot of stuff housed under there. It's the square root of your two x values, because this is the distance between 2 points. So there's going to be two x values and then two y values. So the first thing is we take the difference. Difference means subtract. So I'm taking the difference of my two x values. Those are in parentheses because then I'm squaring it. And the reason it's in parentheses is because if you remember back, 3 squared is 9. Negative 3 squared and negative 3 squared are two different things. Negative 3 squared in parentheses is 9 because it's going to square that negative. Whereas negative 3 squared not in parentheses is negative 9 because that squared is only going to the 3. In parentheses, it's going to both. So those parentheses are really important. And order matters because it's a subtraction sign. This gets added to the same thing but with my y values. Again, parentheses are important because when I'm squaring it, subtraction tells me order matters. So what needs to match is if I have x1 first, I need y1 first. And if I have x2 second, I need y2 second. So x2 and y2, x1 and y1, those need to match up in order. If I want to find the distance between the 2 points on the graph, well, first I need to know what my points are. Remember, points are x, comma y. X is your horizontal axis. So if I follow out my x-axis, I am at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I went to the left, so I'm at negative 5. And then y is vertical, and I'm going up 1, 2, 3. So I'm at 3. So this is negative 5, 3. And my other one, for my second point, I'm traveling in my x, so I'm traveling left 1, 2, so that's negative. And then I'm traveling down 1, 2, 3, so that's negative as well. So that second point is negative 2, negative 3. We're going to plug that in and chug it through the distance formula. So again, if I write it again, just so you see it, it's the square root of my x's subtracted and squared added to my y's subtracted and squared. You decide which point you want to start with. That point is your x1, y1, and then you move to your second point. So let's say we're starting up here because it's at the top. So I take that x value, it's negative 5, and I subtract the other x value, which is negative 2, and square it. Now, since I started with the top coordinate, I must do it again even in the y's. So that's a 3 minus your other one, negative 3, and square it. Break it down inside of there. Negative 5 minus a negative 2, well, that becomes plus positive. So that's actually negative 5 plus 2, which is negative 3, squared. And then 3 minus negative 3 becomes plus positive 3. So that's 3 plus 3, which is 6, squared. Negative 3 squared, well, we just talked about that, but if you type it into your calculator, just make sure those parentheses are around it. So negative 3 squared is 9, and 6 squared is 36, which gives us a square root of 45. And we like to round in this class to the nearest tenth. So that's going to get me 6.7. Let's try another. Find AB, and they give me the points this time. Now you need to know that if they just say AB, nothing else, that means find the distance between A and B. So notice how there's no symbol. We talked about symbols last time. That's why symbols are important, because if the symbol doesn't exist, that actually means something. It means to find the distance. So again, the distance formula, square root of my x's subtracted n squared added to my y's, subtracted n squared. And again, that order matters. So since x1 is first, y1 is first. And you decide which one you want to start with. So let's start with point A, because it comes first in the alphabet. So I'm going to do x value is -4 minus the x value from B is 3, squared and added to. Now since I started with A, I do it again. Y value is 1 minus the y value from B is -1, and squared. -4 minus 3, well, that's -7. Then 1 minus -1 is plus +1, so that's 2. -7 squared, 49. 2 squared, 4. Sorry. That's the square root of 53, which is roughly 7.3. Now you go ahead and pause the video and try number 3 on your own. Hopefully you have an answer for number 3. I'll ask you at the end of the video to type in what your answer is. Make sure you're rounding correctly. The second formula today is your midpoint formula. Again, it should be memorized. But your midpoint formula is going to give you a point. And again, we talked about how a point is an x, comma, y. So it's not just going to be one number. You're going to have a comma in there. This is my comma. So there's two different parts, your x part and your y part. Now think of midpoint as an average. If I asked you to average up your grades, you would add them all together and divide by the number you added together. So here, if I'm averaging between these 2 points, well, I'm adding up all of my points, 2, and dividing by the number of points I added together, 2. So what this looks like is your x's stay together. My x's stay together, and you average, so you add together, and there's 2 of them, so I divide by 2. And then your y's stay together, you're averaging, so you're adding them. There's 2 of them, so you divide by 2. So really, it's just an average formula. Don't overstress yourself with it. It's just finding the average between 2 points. You guys can do that. So the order doesn't matter because it's addition, but it's good to get in the habit of always using the same order. That way, when it does matter and when it doesn't, you don't have to memorize. But if I was finding this midpoint, I take my x's and add them together. 7 and 9 are my x's. Since there's 2 of them, I'm going to divide by 2. I do the same thing but with y. My y's are -5 and -1. So those get added together. There's 2 of them. I divide by 2. 7 plus 9 is 16. Still getting divided by 2 eventually. And -5 plus -1 is -6. Still getting divided by 2 eventually. Now we can do this math. So we need to divide by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. -6 divided by 2 is -3. That would be the coordinate of the middle point between the two. So you guys go ahead and pause the video and try number 2 on your own. Alright, hopefully you have that answer because you'll be asked to type it in at the end of this video. The last type is to find a missing endpoint. So if you notice as you read, it says find the coordinates of A. If M is -1, 2, and is in the middle. So M is in my middle, and it is going to be -1, 2, and B is on one of the ends. It doesn't matter which end, so B. I don't know A. I don't know it. Those are my 2 blanks. So how we do this is we kind of just ask ourselves what's happening between the 2 points. You must start at an endpoint. So my endpoint is going to be here. I'm going to ask myself, between x and my other x, what am I doing? Between x and my other x, what am I doing? So what am I doing 2, 3 to make -1? Well, if I add to it, 3 plus, let's say, 3, well, that gets me 6, so that's not going to work. So obviously I'm subtracting. 3 minus what gets me negative 1? 3 minus 3 is 0, so 3 minus 4 is going to be negative 1. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to minus 4. Negative 1 minus 4 is going to get me negative 5. And then do it again, but in my y's. Again, start at the end. So negative 5, and then what am I doing to get 2? Well, if I subtract, I'm going to get smaller, and I need to get bigger. So negative 5 plus 5 is 0. So negative 5 plus 7 is going to get me my 2. And then do the same thing. 2 plus 7 is 9. So the actual coordinates there are going to be negative 5, 9 for point A. Let's try it again. Find the coordinates of J. If K is at 5, 10, and it's the midpoint, and L is at negative 8, 6. Now I'm going to move it on you to show you that you have to start at that endpoint. And I'm finding K. All right, so again, start at the endpoint. I'm asking myself, what am I doing to negative 8 to produce a negative 5? Well, I'm getting bigger. I'm getting closer to 0. So negative 8 plus something has to get me negative 5. Well, negative 8 plus 3 gets me negative 5. So do it again. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Well, in the y, again, start at the end. 6 to 10. Well, I'm getting bigger. 6 plus what gets me 10? Well, 6 plus 4. So 10 plus 4 gets me 14. So the coordinates of K are going to be negative 2, 14. Not K, guys. J. I'm so sorry there. If you were confused about that, I'm extremely sorry. So you go ahead and pause the video and try number 3 on your own. And hopefully you have an answer that you can type in at the end. Make sure you bring any questions that you have to the class meeting tomorrow.